And welcome back to Visceral Reactions, your regular stop for irregular amounts of horror. And you know what we say here, trauma keeps repeating, and repeating. I am Matthew.
I am Quinton.
And on today's episode, we are looking at 2018's Possum, which, if you have Shudder, is the coolest poster on there.
Yes.
And definitely the most intriguing. It at least got us to do it.
Yeah.
So,
but maybe also slightly misleading.
Yeah. So, Matthew Holness.
First movie. He's a comedian.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of his stuff.
Neither have I, but we've seen this.
Yes.
And once again, a lot of debuts.
Yes.
We get caught with those. Yeah, this is honestly, I think this is one where no external context is needed. Like, I think the discussion really doesn't have to go outside
the movie
itself in order to be fulfilling. Like, honestly, I think trying to do anything external really wouldn't.
No, because there's not much, like, we can't like shove in Reagan or 9/11 into this one. This is like, it's the first film with the film itself in the context of outside the film, it's in its own bubble.
It is. And also, I mean, there's just not much in this for us to really like try to like dig into.
Not saying stuff. This is Other Lamb situation.
Oh, yeah.
This is kind of like the inverse of Other Lamb.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, it kind of feels like a similar movie, but it does everything kind of a bit better.
Yes. Yeah. So, Sean Harris, who I recognized from...
Yeah, what has he been in?
Mission Impossible.
Okay.
The last two Mission Impossible movies.
Okay.
He played Solomon, who's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he has that very distinct voice, and so that's how I recognized him. He's obviously done a lot of British things over the past 20 years.
And the other actor,
Alan Armstrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recognize him. It took me a while because he looked very familiar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I've seen him in other things. But we played Monsieur Thénardier, and I don't know if it was the West End or Broadway of Les Miserables.
Interesting. I could also see that.
I think I saw him. I didn't see him personally, but I watched the 10th anniversary, clips of the 10th anniversary of Les Mis, and he's Thénardier. And
gotcha.
Like, that's who I recognize.
So
that's it.
Yeah.
Kinda. That's like, there's other characters and actors in it, but they're in it for like 5 minutes. They're like background.
Yeah.
This is a 2-man show.
Yeah. So I can't even say the plot, but just the synopsis of the movie itself.
Yes.
Is
Philip. Yep.
Is Sean Harris's character is returning home because of an incident that we never are aware of.
Yes.
But can kind of.
Yes. The film does it gives you a lot of, unlike Other Lamb, which doesn't give you enough to really create your own narrative, this gives you just enough where you can fill in the pieces. And it's very satisfying to fill in the pieces once you get to certain bits and you get more information as the film goes along.
Yeah. It's funny, while watching it, Philip's movements look like he's a video game character.
Yes, let's talk about that first, because we would also have to like go into like, we're gonna not tread carefully in the way of like anything substantial, but like just because there's actually a lot going on with this film. His movements, you can just see he's a person who has not only experienced a lot of trauma in his life, that's the theme of the film.
That is the movie.
Yeah, but like,
yeah,
he walks in like almost this regressed form, like as a child would walk, or someone who's very
uncomfortable
with being in his own body and just being very comfortable not necessarily existing, but just in the situations and environment around him, because his arms are always in front of him whenever he walks, and he just walks with this like gait and way where like he's very antisocial.
Mm-hmm.
He keeps everything in. He has his own bubble.
Yeah. And that is given a physical embodiment in the form of a light brown duffel bag.
Yes.
Leather. And
A very nice.
Yeah, it is a nice bag.
Nice duffel bag.
And in that bag is Possum. And Possum is not a possum. Possum is a puppet of a human face on the body of a giant spider.
It's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
What a great design.
Yeah. And throughout you hear little possum fairy tale.
It's little nursery rhymes that Philip made when he was a child. He
Yeah.
made this book about possum being this creature that crawls into kids' beds and eats them, which has much worse context when you start to get more of the crux of characters and what the plot's about.
Yeah. And at first glance, you would think, okay, this puppeteer is in a space in his life where like he's in a home. He's in his home.
His old childhood home, which looks like shit.
Yeah, it's
this place has
terrible condition.
Has not been kept.
And then there's Maurice. You know, and
Uncle Morris.
You know, it's interesting. We don't know, or like I didn't know that was his uncle until the very end. I assumed it was like a stepfather type of thing.
Either his father, but then we get more information.
Yeah.
Then okay.
Well, but he says,
not your dad.
To him that
yeah. So I'm like, I thought in the beginning you're either just taking like is he renting out the house or something?
Yeah.
But after that, I'm like, he's probably like an uncle.
Yeah, there's that tension.
Yeah.
And
like there's a closer tension to he's just not living there. Like there's a relationship there.
Yeah. And Uncle Morris pretty much taunts Philip. Like every time he sees him.
Relentlessly. Every
conversation that they have is Morris beating Philip down in some way.
Yeah.
And there are these very weird, moldy green candies.
Yes.
In a jar that look like they haven't been touched in decades.
Nope.
And Philip refuses to want to eat those.
Mm-hmm.
And then really the majority of the movie is Philip walking around and
what I'm assuming is Norfolk, right in the north of Norfolk.
Yes.
Right where all the train tracks are.
I didn't know that. Well,
they're sure probably train tracks.
I'm sure there's train tracks everywhere.
It's the north.
Yeah.
There's industry. There's an old barracks. You don't want to go there, lad.
Yeah. And the barracks is where the climax happens.
Yeah.
And bad shit.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah. But first, there's about an hour's worth of Philip walking around with this duffel bag.
Trying to get rid of it.
And he does get rid of it numerous times,
yes.
But it keeps coming back.
And other times he is about to, but he has like a breakdown and he just has to get it back.
Yeah, like he throws it over the bridge.
Yeah.
And then he starts walking away from it and then he
like,
collapses.
Yeah.
And so naturally, you know, everyone has baggage.
Yes.
Philip has an actual baggage.
It's a bit heavy-handed, but
it's very on the nose.
Yeah, but not like in a way that's stupid.
Because of what's in it.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that separates it. If it were just an actual bag full of nothing or whatever, then it would be dumb. And it would be like, okay, I don't need to see you carrying a giant bag to know that you have a lot going on.
Yeah.
But because Possum is in this bag, and Possum is fucking terrifying.
Yes.
it becomes much more complicated because the thing that Philip can't get rid of
It's trauma.
isn't the bag, it's
Trauma.
yes.
And that's what the film is continuously showing with him trying to get rid of it and having like a breakdown and having to get it back is you can't easily just throw away trauma. It is a process. It takes time
Yeah.
and effort and like it's a struggle.
And in Philip's case, the trauma is Possum.
Yeah.
So
All of his trauma as a kid got absorbed into this fucking monstrosity of a
Yeah.
thing.
I mean the dreams, the hallucinations that he
Yes.
has throughout the movie.
Like I said, very much like Other Lamb, but there's context in these.
Yeah.
Like even like the opening credits with the film grain and stuff, like even looking at it, you can tell, oh, there's trauma in this. And like all the visual representations of the hallucinations and the nightmares. Because at least we have context that he's dreaming because he wakes up and we see when he goes to sleep, we see like these abstract visuals that really like brings home like trauma. You have like balloons surrounded in smoke. Like you don't need to explain that. I know, like I can just tell like childhood trauma. It's all there. It's shot and presented in a way where you can make the connection. With Other Lamb, you're like, I don't really know what I'm seeing as and we were talking about how we're not sure like what's real and what's not in Other Lamb. This one, it's more deliberate and it doesn't make me as frustrated because Philip doesn't know either. Because yes, he's dreaming, but also like sometimes he's not because you can tell he's not sleeping. The bag's under his eyes get red. Like you can tell he's not sleeping throughout the days as they go along, which makes sense why he would be having weird hallucinations and stuff. It all makes sense.
It does. I think, unfortunately, it doesn't really make sense until like the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's really my biggest issue with it is just how, I don't know. Again, like this could have been shorter. Like this could have been like 40 minutes.
A short film?
Yeah. Or if like I could swap out 10 minutes and spread it out throughout the movie of more dialogue between
Yeah.
him
Because
and Morris.
there's not a lot of dialogue in this film, much
Yeah.
like Other Lamb.
Yeah. But if I had just like a couple more exchanges
Yeah.
between him and Morris instead of just him like walking around.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, like half an hour in, I get it. Like
Yeah.
I get what's happening with Philip as a character. Like even if I don't know at that point what's going on
Yeah.
with Philip in relation to Morris, but I at least know that this problem is very much there.
Yeah, and I'm not really that upset about the walking around because I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record. I apologize. Unlike Other Lamb, where there's like not really much purpose in the walking. I think with Philip, and this is just my interpretation, he keeps going to places where he's either visited a lot as a child or has had a lot of trauma happen to him there as a child, whether it be the school, the bridge, or the barracks, or that other weird abandoned building. I don't know what that was. I think, was that part of the barracks still?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
And of course, the house, which had the most trauma.
yeah. So what happens? Like there's like this room.
Several things have happened in this house.
Yeah, like at one point Philip says, "I wish it was you that burned."
Was it used to burn in that fire?
Yeah. And we assume like, oh, okay.
And that's the great thing. The film gets you little bits of information where you're like, what's that? And you're wondering if they're ever going to like bring that up or just vague, like just dialogue. But this film's, I think, is very well written without it having much dialogue. Because you get little bits of information, but the film will give you little bits of more information that it allows you to piece it together on your own, which is great. I never felt stupid or like not really know what was going on, even though it is some with films like this, Another Lamb, the visuals you can get like a bit bogged down and be like, wait, what's going on? I think this one's just structured a bit more. And with like, it gives you the fire bits of information to be like, oh, I know what's happening. I know what they're referencing to.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I wish that a little bit of, really, I guess just like the information that we got would have been like a little bit closer together.
Right.
Because it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't establish a sort of rhythm in that sense. The thing about the puppet that is really cool, other than its design, or I should say how the puppet is used, is that we don't see what's in the bag for like maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
You always get glimpses.
And then you just start seeing the ends of legs.
Yeah. You're like, what the fuck is that?
And then, he starts hallucinating that it's attacking him in his sleep.
Yep.
At one point, he wakes up with it in bed.
Several times.
And you start noticing that, like, the puppet is not just a puppet. Like, you can even... I hate the theories of, like, well, what's actually even there? I think you could make the argument that that Possum, after like the first time he gets rid of him, is actually gone, and that what's in it from then on is a completely different story. And
I have my own theory about that.
So
let's go back to the fire first, because we were talking about that. I think that'll it'll shift back into what you're trying to say, I think.
Maybe.
Okay.
The fire, honestly, I think was not even the most... Like, the fire is not the most important thing.
No, it's not. Okay. We'll go back to that. It's like a background story.
Yeah. Like, I think the fire is important only in as much as it means that Philip is an orphan.
Well, it kind of like builds upon like, it's like a domino chain effect.
Yeah.
Of what Philip kind of ends up becoming, who he is as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. These very seemingly disparate moments that by the end make us think, or at least made me think, how much of this is actually
real.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Very like, kind of like how Joker is sometimes.
Yes. Because the beginning with Philip on the train and he sees the boys.
Yep.
And these three boys are like bullying him, bullying this other kid, and the kid's drawing.
I didn't know if they were bullying. I think I thought it was the four of them with the boy drawing, the three of them just kind of like hanging out with each other, and the boys with them, he's just like doing his own thing. Cause like, I didn't know if like one of the kids tussling his hair was a bully thing or like an endearing thing. I couldn't tell. It
seemed a little aggressive, but it could just be boys being boys,
Right.
And so Philip looks at the kid, and the kid realizes that he's looking at him, and he kind of like covers up his book.
Philip's kind of a creepy guy to have you look at, kind of.
And when they're walking off the train, he says something to the kid like, "You like to draw?
What were you drawing?"
Oh, he says, "What were you drawing?"
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was,
What you're drawing there, young filler.
And the kid like goes away, and then we see that kid has been abducted.
Goes missing, yeah.
Later on in the movie.
And weird vignettes where like the TV would turn on by itself. And that was me thinking, is that real or not? Is that a bit of him hallucinating trauma? Did Philip kidnap the boy?
When you put together this kid disappearing,
yep,
with these two teens calling Philip a pervert in passing.
Yeah.
And the fact that he is no longer, like, he's not allowed at school right now because of something happened. And that
I think he wasn't allowed at, well, he was just creepily standing out the outskirts of the school.
before that, like, the reason why he's home is because there was an incident that,
With him.
yeah,
Oh, that's what you meant. Yeah, yeah.
that he's waiting to blow over.
Yeah.
So you can look at that and you can think, okay, is Philip the one who's doing these things?
Yeah. And which is interesting because I always assumed it like he had like a nervous breakdown at whatever what job he was doing with kids. I don't know. It's very vague what his job was. And
Yeah.
I don't know if he was a teacher. I think he was a teacher. It's hard to.
I don't think it was said.
Yeah, okay.
So you're like, well, is he kidnapping kids?
Yes.
And you find out through this very, very explosive moment that contains more energy than literally the first 75 minutes of the movie.
That made me, it jump scared me.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And while he's in the room,
Yeah, Philip has been avoiding going in this room because we'll tie this back into the fire. So a fire happened in this house and it killed his parents. And you can like much tell it was here because like the place looked like it went through a fire. It's not like blackened, but there's something about it. It's dirty and grungy in a way. You were like, yeah, something happened here. I think the fire happened here. And it did. He's been dreading going in this room for several reasons. One of it is where his parents died. That was his parents' bedroom.
yeah.
That's where the trauma started. I don't know if he watched his parents burn or just that he knew that his parents died in that bedroom. But
It does explain the image that reoccurs of
the balloons.
the balloons and the
Yeah,
smoke.
and it could have been like on his birthday too, which it's even more trauma. So he opens the door. And then what happens?
He gets bum rushed by fucking Morris.
In a mask.
Yeah. And then, like, you know, they're like tussling,
Yeah.
you know, and Philip then gets turned over and Morris pulls his pants down and starts whipping him.
Yeah.
Like, he starts punishing him.
Yeah.
And he
Philip
tells
starts regressing very
Yeah.
quickly.
And he tells him, like, you know, if you cry,
I'll do it again.
I'll start over.
And how does this film also have fingers and mouth?
I don't know.
That was weird. I'm like, really? We're doing this again?
Yeah. Yeah. He takes off his gloves
Yeah.
and he's got these really long fingers and
These kind of sharp, pointed
yeah.
fingernails.
And
He hasn't
shoves
washed
them
in a
his
while.
throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and gags him with it. And it becomes very clear that the trauma,
It's Uncle Morris.
yeah, that Philip has clearly been molested for God knows how long.
And abused. Yep.
By Uncle Morris, and that he then channeled Possum. He channeled all of this,
Yeah.
all of this fear and anxiety into Possum.
And and the narrative and the story that he
Yeah.
created, because it talks about Possum crawling into your bed
yeah.
and eating them
Yeah,
late at night. Uncle Morris crawling into his bed.
yeah,
And it's even the fingers, Morris doing God knows what with his fingers.
the
Possum.
spider.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's actually quite clever.
yeah.
It's very clever.
Like, everything involving Possum makes sense at that moment.
Yeah.
You got to think about the candy.
I think because he gives him a candy when he burns Possum, like, good job. Good job, lad. You took away your trauma. You did it. Here's a candy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking every time Morris went into his bedroom and did God knows whatever, he gave him a candy after.
It's very possible.
Because after, I think when he puts it in his mouth after burning Possum, he has like a violent reaction. Like he starts, I don't know if he passes out, he convulses, he almost throws up. I think that's I don't know if like that trauma's been suppressed where he doesn't remember. He just remembers bad things happening as a kid by eating that candy. I wonder if that started like a chain reaction with his memories coming back. Because that's when the hallucinations get worse and worse.
Or the candy could have been drugged.
That's what, yeah, I also was thinking that too.
And that the hallucinations that he has throughout the film are actually drug induced.
Yeah, and I literally was thinking that after watching it, like it's either that, like a trauma coming back and he's remembering, or these candies, these 30-year-old candies are still finally, good drugged. Morris would give him that and he'd be drugged and he would do whatever.
Because then that would explain what's in the bag. And it would be potentially incriminating evidence against the uncle. That every time Philip is going to get rid of Possum, it's actually just stuff that, like, I don't know, clothes, I don't know, body parts. Like, I don't know how far it goes, but enough to where we learn that the boy who was abducted,
right,
is actually in this container.
It's a chest.
A chest.
One of those big steam trunk. I don't know what they're called.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about it a second ago, Philip getting rid of evidence, was that what you thought was happening before the reveal? Like he did something? Okay.
Yeah, no, I had no reason to think that he was doing anything other than getting rid of Possum.
Right.
But if
that was kind of going through my mind a bit, like let's say hypothetically in my mind, he did do something with this kid. Like I was thinking like maybe Possum isn't real and what's in it. He's option one that we talked about, trauma, which it is, but option two, like it's evidence to, so he's, but that was the what if he had kidnapped this kid, was doing whatever.
Yeah. I think when all of it really makes sense is when he snaps his uncle's neck.
Yeah.
The boy comes out. Like,
or he lets the boy out. I don't remember which one.
Oh no, he just
the boy
burst out.
Okay.
Kind of. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, that kid is him. Like all of this, everything that we've been witnessing from the very beginning, like the whole exchange between him and the kid on the train, like that was a memory.
Oh, is that what you think it was?
Like he was the boy who was abducted. Like he was the boy that went missing, and that all of this has been him
reliving.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it that way.
The incident at school is probably, him being abused.
Right.
Because he says when he goes to the school as an adult, and he tells the woman that this teacher was going to go with him to the police.
Yeah.
I think that was a memory.
That was a memory, but I think that was also like Philip regressing again to that boy to be like, I know I'll go to the teacher because he'll help me because he helped me before or whatever.
Yeah, because like the moment that he kills his uncle is the moment that this younger version of himself is freed. And it's like, that's the thing. Like, that's the moment where he actually gets rid of Possum.
Right. I never thought of it that way. I always
Yeah.
assumed it was, a kid that Philip saw a lot of similarities in him.
Yeah.
If it was being bullied by the kids, him drawing like, I thought for a second you said, "Oh, that's me," like in a metaphorical sense.
Yeah, no, like I think that all of those moments of him walking around, or at least like most of them, like whenever he visits a place, like specifically a certain place, I think that is not actually happening, but it did happen just when he was a child. And so when we get to that moment at the end, it's breaking the cycle, because now Possum's actually gone.
Right.
And yeah, and I guess, that's a moment of resolution, of, I don't know, like coming to terms with, because there's also a degree of not thinking about these things, the way that the brain suppresses terrible moments.
Yep.
That by acknowledging that his uncle is his abuser and then doing something about it, which he has not done, clearly, because his uncle says that you kept quiet.
Yeah.
Which leads me to what I think is the most clever thing in the movie, and it's the story about the fox.
Yes.
So there's this memory that Philip has of him and a bunch of other boys finding a fox.
I think out by the bridge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fox starts to like spasm or something. And so I'm assuming the other kids and not Philip, they start kicking the fox around like a soccer ball.
Yeah. Or just kicks it.
Yeah. And then they turn on Philip for not doing anything. And they grab him and they put his face like in the fox.
Yeah.
And they like, they're just fucking with him and, terrorizing him. And like, as soon as they walk away, Philip notices the fox eyes open up.
Yeah.
And then he gets up and then
runs away.
And the fox runs away.
Yep.
And whether that actually happened or if that is just the most perfect allegory for Philip's life, I don't know.
Yeah, just laying down, playing dead.
Yeah, because that's what he had to do with his uncle. Which then makes because the moment where his uncle says, like, did you see any foxes? You're always bringing up that fox or something like that. The idea of the concept of keeping silent for the sake of preservation is huge in this. From hearing about the fox, from him not saying anything to his uncle because it would just start, some kind of argument. And then at the end, literally keeping quiet means that he only gets hit 6 times instead of who knows how many.
Yeah.
So, obviously that concept of keeping quiet versus speaking up is, essential to the understanding of abuse and surviving abuse. And so it's just really, really interesting that this story of the fox is the thing that brings all of that together. And between that and the possum, it's like we have very few things, but the things that we do have are very potent.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why I just wish that things were a little bit shorter, because then that potency would be heightened, because especially since it's so back heavy, it's like, I don't know, like I caught myself drifting off. And
I did so ever so slightly, because things do move at kind of a slow pace.
It's glacial, honestly. And that's really the film's only
but
detriment.
it always did enough to keep me engaged.
Yeah. I guess the moments of the hallucinations, like that's where like I'd get reeled in, and maybe I would have liked to have seen more of Possum earlier, like even just a little bit more.
The very interesting thing about the film is there are moments where they don't show you a lot of Possum, but there are moments where they'll just show you the whole thing.
Yeah.
But like, it's not like taking a genie out of the bottle. Like once you see the shark, that's it. It keeps being terrifying.
And what's interesting about that is the moments that we do see Possum, like full body and all of that, it's always in the nighttime, during the day.
Yeah. Never at night.
Completely harmless, literally just a limp puppet.
Yeah.
But it's at night.
Oh, do we see it at night? When do we see it at night?
No, just as far as him being a threat.
Oh.
Because every time it's during the day and he's like hitting it getting rid of it or picking it up from the mud, like it's always during the daytime and it's just a inanimate puppet.
At night when he's dreaming. Right.
At night is when there is no harmless Possum. Like that's when he's dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, that makes sense.
Because you're in your own head when you're dreaming.
Yeah. And also, when did Possum hurt you? At
night. Yeah.
So I guess, for something like that to be even stronger, I think to condense it slightly. Because I think once we get that, we know that Philip is traumatized.
Yes.
Like we know that he's...
You kind of, like I said, that from like the instance the credits start rolling in the beginning of the film.
Yeah, like within 5 minutes, you understand that this guy is fucked.
Yes.
Like he is pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And since we don't get to see another side of him, we only get to see him reliving his abuse and struggling to even confront that abuse.
Yeah.
It would help him not seem like a simple character. Like he would be much more rounded out, I think, if there were other people for him to...
Yeah, I think so too.
To interact
Just give
with.
him a bit more sympathy.
Yeah.
A bit of a more stronger personality
than
just being traumatized.
Exactly. And if you don't want to add anything like that, add any more dialogue or show any other memories, then honestly, just kind of trimming
just make it a short
some
film.
of the fat.
40-minute short film.
Because it's already 85 minutes, so it's already pretty short.
Yeah, it's not even, it doesn't even hit 90.
But if you were to take away
20 minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could reduce a lot of that, because then I think you wouldn't ruin the opportunity for people to interpret things differently.
Yeah.
You would just get there a little bit quicker.
Speaking of interpretation, I have my own interpretation about the film. It makes total sense that what we're seeing when it comes to like the schoolboy is memories.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it legitimately is just a schoolboy.
Okay.
Because there's like, the film gives us certain bits of information and context that make it seem that way. There's like the news reports we get, even though they're weird in their own right and they could be like dismissed as being like part of the unreliable narrator part of how the film works. Talks about the schoolboy being missing, and it talks about a man in a beige coat with a leather duffel bag being seen roaming around. That's what Philip's been wearing. I mean, for the first part of the film. And he always has his duffel bag. They wouldn't just put that in there for a reason. They put it in for a reason to probably make you think that Philip has done something. But like, I think it also to help grounded that it's, the boy is real. And the Morris talks about how Philip was assaulted as a kid by a man in a mask. And Morris is 100% unfortunately real. All his interactions with him, I think, save for one, and I'm interested to know what you think about that, is like actually happened, is real. So because of that, of him like, hanging out in the school and stuff for a bit, which also just could be him, like I said before, like visiting all the places he's had trauma. I seriously think Morris kidnapped this boy, and which is abuse, because Philip's not around. He needs as crude as this is going to sound, he needs a plaything. Mm-hmm. So there's Maurice, because Maurice is sometimes out. He's gone. I mean, he's either out doing something, I don't know, trying to search out other boys. He could be in the room doing God knows whatever. But I do think it is that just, this is just the kid that Philip sees a lot of similarities to. And it kind of makes the story a bit more satisfying, being like, yeah, what's going on with the kid? Oh, he was there the whole time. Oh, thank God he's fine. Maybe not mentally and physically a bit, but like he's not dead.
It makes sense. Makes sense.
And you also had mentioned about like, you think that after the first time Philip got rid of Possum, he got rid of it and he was just like kind of hallucinating it. There was like a backhanded comment that Maurice said at the end when he's, molesting Philip. I think he was saying that like he's been following him.
Yeah, he says, it was me back there, didn't you? At the barracks.
So I think he's just been following Philip the whole time. And like every time Philip, besides the one time when he's at the bridge and he has a traumatic moment and gets, Possum back, I think Morse has literally just been following him around and bringing Possum back and putting him back just to torture him more.
It's very possible. So I think that bag belonged to his uncle. And I think that the description of the person is still Maurice.
Okay.
Because when he's looking at the newspaper and it's it's got the full photo of the abducted boy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the room where there's all of those piles of old newspapers. And
No, that was on that newspaper was on the kitchen table when we first see it. That's how I remember seeing it first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it was. Okay. Well, there goes that. But
your theory could still just be as correct.
Yeah. I guess all of that paper, like we see him burning it later.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say what happened and possibly when. But I guess as far as the how, because of Philip's shaky memory and because of the kind of like fractured quality of the film itself, that it's a little difficult to tell at times like what's exactly going on. And then the end happens, like a bum rush of information.
Now, would you say the police knocking at the door late at night, was that a dream? Was that going to your theory about him reliving a memory? Because I thought it was the police, investigating where Philip lives and where his childhood home is, because his description has been seen all around. And it's the fact that he was at the school and he left because they were talking about calling the police.
I think that sounds right. I think the police not looking for him in the sense of wanting to question him, but knowing that he was at the school. Okay, let's say that wasn't some type of memory.
Okay.
And that he does actually go back to the school and is asking someone to come with him to the police, then that could be a moment of talking or not talking, I should say, to the police, of them asking.
I almost expected there to be a conversation with the police.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted it.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah.
That would have been good. But it's possible that the point is that even when given the opportunity to speak about something, that it could feel impossible to speak about something.
And yeah.
And especially if that is him going through that memory again, then, for a 12, 13-year-old child, I'm sure the police are probably the last people that, that you'd want to go to with something like that. So
now I'm going to ask you, because it's only one part where I'm not sure if it's real or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's the scene where he's burning Possum, and it's the only scene he has a somewhat endearing moment with his uncle. Do you think that was real or not? I'm still on the fence about it. Because remember, after he's looking through the barrel to find Possum, and I don't know if that scrap of stuff's in there is bits of Possum, or he's not finding it because it's burned or it's never there or whatever. And I think Uncle's like, what are you going on about? It's hard to tell. But then there's at the very last scene of the film, the last shot is Philip sitting outside holding the black and charred head of Possum.
Yeah. I think if only for the fact that is the only time that someone else interacts with him.
Yeah.
With Possum, that's real.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is too. Anything with I think more is happening is 100% real. Now, here's my other question, because I've been curious about it, and I'm wondering if you agree or not. Is Possum's face Phillips's face? Because they look very similar. The nose and the ears. I'm thinking he made a mold as his face to create the puppet.
It's fair. I wouldn't doubt it. I didn't think about that.
Okay.
Did not think about that. It would be extra creepy if that is the case.
That thing's already creepy enough as it. That's great.
Yeah, that
great design.
Yeah.
Let's quickly talk about how great the soundtrack is.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's fantastic. Yeah. It's by the Radiophonics Workshop. I think it's their first feature-length film soundtrack.
It was great.
Yeah. I think it's also the same BBC department, whatever, that did the original Doctor Who theme. Because it has that synth and music. I would love to listen to the soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's great.
It was very disorienting at times.
Yep.
It was.
It's melancholy throughout all of it. It's fantastic. It helps with the visuals because it is a very nicely shot film.
Yeah.
For it being this director's first time. Very well shot. Very well acted. It's all just pacing aside.
Yeah. Again, that's the only thing that I have issue with. And
I think it's a pretty damn good film.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's weird that the film's called Possum, but they use a fox as an example of playing dead.
Yeah.
You would think it would be a possum.
Awesome.
But I'm not complaining because you get to see foxes in the film. And foxes are the best, and they're my favorite animal.
Yeah, foxes are cool, especially the little one that they see in there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that about.
Yeah, kind of short, just like Other Land, but at least we had a lot more positives.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is the complete inverse of Other Land. We couldn't have picked a better film
to follow up.
They're polar opposites.
Yeah, yin and yang.
With still being similar in like, you know, almost this trauma in Other Lamb kind of, but just like just how they're structured, it's very similar.
Yeah.
Just one's done,
but completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that this was the follow-up.
Yeah, it couldn't have been more perfect.
Yeah. I mean, we have no clue what next week is going to be because we didn't do the...
No. We're going to be tying it in. I don't know if we've released it already, but we have our own.
Yeah, it's up.
Visceral Reactions.
31-day challenge.
Yep. We're not going to be doing an episode every day because that would kill us.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to be, whenever the day we record, because we usually record on Tuesday. It's Tuesday, by the way. Happy Tuesday, everyone. We're going to see like, what's that day? We're going to do the list and we're going to pick from there. It's going to be our month-long Halloween treat.
Yeah.
Because we're about to hit spooky month.
Spooky season. Yeah. So that's the arrangement, and like the Facebook post says, and the Instagram post say.
Yeah, we have Instagram. Just go to Visceral Reactions, type it in on Instagram, it'll be there.
Let us know what you're watching.
Yep. We would love, please. Please
created a hashtag. I think
please. I know you guys are shy, and I know we dogging you a bit, but we would literally, absolutely love to know what your picks are.
Yeah.
It's going to be up. If it's not up already, you said it was up.
Yeah, it's up. It's on.
Please, starting on Saturday, October 1st, we want to know. We would love to know.
And each day on Instagram, there will be
our own pick.
Yeah, our own pick, and then a couple of suggestions in case like you're having trouble finding something.
We'll do that on Facebook too, probably.
Yeah. And so we'll spend the month together doing that. So thank you for joining this possum-filled episode.
Yes.
And
don't play dead.
Yeah. I think that about covers it.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us on this episode of Visceral Reactions. I'm Matthew.
If anyone's needing anything at all they have to do is follow the spiders.
And that's a wrap.